Okay, welcome everybody. We're going to kick this off, and we'll be welcoming Daryl Steinberg, our moderator, in just a minute. He's pulling in. To kick things off, my name is Chris Devers, and I'm the CEO of an organization called Rancho Cielo. It's 2 miles north of the city of Salinas in the Gavilan foothills on a 100-acre ranch. I started my career, just really quick, a little bit about myself. I was a Peace Corps volunteer originally in South America, and I got into community-based economic development, alternative economic development, and I came back and went to graduate school at the Monterey Institute of International Studies, and 9/11 happened at that time, and I didn't go to the Middle East. I stayed in our area, and I got involved in education, and I got involved specifically with alternative education, where I met these two fine individuals you're going to hear from in a minute. I went on in alternative ed, running all the court and community schools for adjudicated and expelled youth in Monterey County for 21 years. I was a teacher, principal, and then senior director. The most interesting facilities was working with our incarcerated facilities. That's where I met Terry. You'll hear about his story in a minute. I went on to become CEO of Rancho Cielo, which is largely privately run as a nonprofit partnered with the John Muir Charter School. You'll hear from Miguel, our administrator from John Muir Charter School. And we've been involved with youth development, really focused on career technical education, but looking at learning as a whole and what young people need to be successful. And so Jim Steyer, Mr. Steyer, Liz Steyer's husband, who's obviously involved with this conference, asked me to bring two students. And so I couldn't think of two better examples to bring than two former students who now work with us, who are being groomed to run our entire operation. With that, I'd like to pass it over to Miguel Mejia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mirel Mejia. I grew up in the east side of Salinas. Like Chris mentioned, he was my teacher when I was in the 8th grade. I then moved on to transition to get my BA, then my master's degree in administration, and currently working on my doctorate degree, and now working at Rancho Cielo with alternative education students.
And just real quick about Miguel, she started in our truancy abatement program I used to run with the district attorney's office. And she started with us in the 8th grade, and she pushed on our college and career coordinator and said, I want to take a college class. And he said, no, you can't. She goes, no, it says right here I can. She started advocating for herself early. So she ended up not only graduating high school, obviously, with us, but she finished with a year of college under her belt. And she went on to get her AA degree at our local community college, her 4-year degree at Cal State University, Monterey Bay, her master's degree in education at San Jose State. She just got her administrative credential from Santa Clara, and she's working on her doctorate now. So I wanted to fill those pieces in. Yeah, we're very proud of her. Terry?
Hey, how everybody doing today? My name is Terry Poole. Awesome. Glad everybody's here. Blessed. How you doing, Daryl? Yes, awesome. The man. Okay, so my name is Terry Poole. I grew up in Monterey, California, Seaside, California, small city about 10 minutes away from Salinas. I grew up a knucklehead. As Chris mentioned, I grew up, with unfortunate opportunities and decisions that I made as a youth. When I was a youth, when I was in junior year in high school, I was hanging around the wrong environment, wrong people. Long story short, ended up getting incarcerated. Spent the rest of my high school years, junior year and senior year in juvenile hall. Graduated from that, similar to like Ms. Mejia mentioned, and Chris, I advocated for myself, right? Being in there, being incarcerated, I understood I did, made wrong decisions, hanging around the wrong people, but also realized that, this is not the life that I wanted to live. And they definitely challenged me to, go to MPC, which is a community college over there where we're from in Monterey County. They hooked me up with the resources, the opportunity, and a guideline on how to execute it. So after being incarcerated at juvenile hall, I went to Monterey Peninsula College, played football there. I got my academics there, graduated with an AA degree, earned a full ride scholarship to San Diego State, played at San Diego State for 2 years, graduated with a BA degree in criminal justice. Within all that, still in connections with Chris and Joe and everybody from Monterey, knowing that after I was done playing football, however far I went, didn't know if I was going to go pro or not, but I told them after I'm done with football and everything, I definitely want to give back to the youth because it did measures for me, right? Transitioned my life, and now I was there at San Diego State. With that being said, I worked hard and earned the rights to get drafted to the Seattle Seahawks, right? Go Hawks! We just won over here, So
Boo.
got drafted to the Seattle Seahawks in the 4th round. Played in the NFL for 3 years. Played in other professional football leagues, CFL, the Rocks Football League, the XFL, UFL. I just retired. With works with Chris and them, just retired. So I'm a transition now. I'm a full-time counselor. I got my master's degree at Point Loma Missouri University, and now I got my credentials to be a counselor, and now full-time in the career educational field. And that's my story. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We have our moderator. I introduced myself. We have our pro Tim of the Senate and so many things, but you want to...
Thank you,
They didn't
Chris.
get to care about you
And Morel
completely.
and Terry, it's wonderful to be with you. And Liz, thank you. I'm sorry I was late. I was driving from Sacramento, and we need to work on this traffic in California. But I'm so glad to be here. I'm Darrell Steinberg. Never played professional football, but I was the president of the state senate in California from 2008 to 2014. I was the mayor of Sacramento from 2016 to 2024. And I have long had a passion for bringing back career education to California's high schools. And Rancho Cielo is a really important model of how to get this done. And let me just give you a little bit of background. So when I became a legislator, I was very concerned about the high school dropout problem because there were too many kids dropping out of high school. And I asked myself this question: is education, the way it has been taught for 100 years, relevant or related in any way to what we expect and hope young people will do once they graduate and go out into the work world? And while there are some exceptions, like the kind of program we're going to hear about today that answers the question yes, the truth is the vast majority of public education throughout California and the United States, there is a complete disconnect between what is taught, how it's taught, and what we expect of young people once they graduate and enter the work world. It's so obvious, the number of young people, for example, with bachelor's degrees who have a hard time getting jobs, who haven't had enough real workforce experience to understand the connection. So when I was in the Senate and led the Senate and the budget times went from really bad to suddenly stable, I took the entire Senate down to Long Beach, California, to look at Long Beach's model programs of career technical education. And we followed up with a $500 million trust fund passed by the legislature, signed by Governor Brown, that invested in building out pathways for young people. And that's been good. The money has continued beyond the $500 million. Subsequent governors, including Governor Newsom, have continued to appropriate this kind of money to build out what we call pathways. But the fundamental problem still remains. The University of California has developed this A to G framework. A to G. It is the default definition of academic rigor in California and the pre-admission requirement to get into the University of California, but applies beyond the UC. Do you know that UC will tell you proudly that they have certified thousands of courses, thousands of A to G courses as defined by career technical education, in other words, taught in applied ways. Do you know that at last count, and it's been a while, about 90% of those certified courses were in photography? What about math? What about science? What about history? What about English? Why aren't we actually teaching high-level math around how to develop a career in nutrition or in business? Why aren't we taking these boring subject matters that are important and actually developing multiple ways to teach them in ways that bring the subject matter alive? That's the opportunity And the challenge here in California, and the more models that we can uplift, that show how to do it differently. You see, you don't have to sacrifice academics. I'm not talking about sacrificing academics. I'm talking about merging academics with career application in a way that the young person gets both the academic underpinning, but also the understanding of its relevance and relationship to the, quote, real world and what you might be doing in that real world. So I'm the moderator. That was my speech. Now do you want me to ask some questions?
Perfect.
Tell us about Rancho Cielo, first of all, and its model of career education. What is the methodology? What's the pedagogy? How did this start, and where do you want to go?
Great. I'll answer that question and then turn it over to the stars of the show to speak about specifically what they do. As I mentioned, I was in alternative ed, and I started to really look at career technical education. I'm more of an experiential learner myself, having grown up on a farm. My brother's a doctor, and he learned differently in school than I did, and I had a lot of issues. So that was kind of the impetus for me to examine how I learned and to apply it, in learning. I never thought I would have become a teacher, especially teaching math, funny enough, and alternative ed. With that being said, we were founded 25 years ago. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, started by Judge John Phillips, who was the presiding judge of Monterey County at the time. We were incarcerating at unprecedented rates. All of our locked facilities were full of young people that we were putting in jail. And Salinas was the most violent city in the United States for youth homicides when I was coming up and I got into this line of work. And I had no idea that these things existed. I stopped counting after 26 murders of students who had been killed or killed other young people. And that was something I had never experienced in my life. And so we needed to respond to this in a certain way. And that was when they brought me in early on, and we started looking at education and workforce development as the solution to that. We didn't want to incarcerate, generationally, where everyone on the family mantle from the family was in prison, and they were looking at the last young person to come up and earn their stripes in the corporate ladder, if you will. And so with that, the private sector really got involved with Rancho Cielo and said, hey, you're locking up our workforce. Let's put our money into this, and let's train them to go into the trades. I'm an economist by training. If I wanted a student to focus on something other than my focus was money laundering and the drug trade early on, and to do something different than sell drugs, for example, you have to train people and support them along the way. So that was really the impetus of it. We started with a community school. We turned the old Natividad Boys Ranch, which was a detention facility for multiple counties in the state. It had become dilapidated. It was owned by the Department of Probation. We got that land on $1 a year, 99-year lease. And the private sector really came in and helped us get everything back up to speed. Julie Packard funded the feasibility study for Rancho Cielo, and it said it couldn't be done. So that's our motto, is resiliency and that it can't be done, and then to do it. And so, as I mentioned, 25 years ago, we started with a community school that I ran for 602 wards of the court, mostly formerly incarcerated, highest level of probation. And then from there, we expanded into our culinary arts program, where we now have the #1 restaurant on TripAdvisor in Salinas, like Delancey Street Cafe, and we produce some of the finest chefs in Pebble Beach. We cook with some of the finest chefs in the world. We have a construction program focused on housing. There we entered a competition, international competition, to build sustainable housing, and we won against 18 universities. I had 3 kids out of county jail on that operation, but there we teach all the building trades. We have a welding and fabrication program that crosses over with many of the programs. They build the trailers now for tiny homes. They're working on classic car restoration. They're structurally building things. We have an automotive program that exclusively trains for the Ford Motor Company with direct access to careers working as technicians with Ford. And then most recently, we started our classic car restoration program. And this year, our students will be showing a 34 Rolls Royce that we picked up in England. And they're restoring many cars from scratch now that we're selling. And then we have an ag program. And funny enough, we have a lot of ag backing coming from the Salinas Valley, but the ag program is our furthest behind. But Rancho Cielo really formed this private-public partnership. You can't do it all alone, and so we bring a lot of private money in from industry, foundations, business leaders, but we do take federal funding, part of the Department of Labor Federal Youth Build Program, and other state funding. But we do it in partnership with our partners. The John Muir Charter School is our main academic partner. And so with that, I want to turn it over to Mirel to maybe speak a little bit about that.
I'm going to ask Mirel. So Chris just laid out the pathways and the occupational pathways and the hands-on learning. So how does it work academically? How are the students in class half the time, out in the workforce and in the community the other half? How does it actually get put together?
So because we are a high school and I work for John Muir Charter Schools, I'm the deputy director and also vice principal at our school. So it comes down to even scheduling. So we have to make sure that we are in compliance with our academic minutes. We have to make sure that we are giving the students opportunities for academic instruction in the classroom. So we do have, we divide up the day. So students are either in group A or B. They start in their vocational area. So when we enroll students, which we have about 178 students enrolled today with a capacity of 210 students. And so the students will start the day at 8:30. They will go into the classroom, either if they're in academics or in vocational, and they will receive instruction academically. Then they will rotate at midday and receive the rest of the instruction in their vocational trades.
So it's about half and half.
Yes.
And are the academic subjects taught in a way that try to relate to what their career interest is?
Yes. So
how does that work?
For example, in construction, we have all of our teachers are trained. We know that our students come with many deficits, specifically in reading and writing and basic math skills, but we know that they have to build a tiny home or they have to have some sort of training academically. So we work together with the vocational instructor, letting us know with the academic teacher, what is it that the student needs to learn in order to be able to build or measure. And so we focus a lot on fractions, measuring, things that are relatable, like you mentioned earlier, and that's what is our secret sauce, is that we have this partnership with the academic, but also with the vocational instructor that is able to mesh those together.
And of the 178 students, how many get high school diplomas and additional certifications when they complete their four-year education?
Well, our goal is that all of them receive a high school diploma, but we do enroll from ages 14 to 24. So it just depends on their credits and what is it that they're missing.
Is there, okay, I'm going to get to you in just a second. Are there partnerships with the community colleges, for example?
Yes, we
How
have.
does that work?
So we have dual enrollment courses offered. We're really blessed and thankful that we have Terry Poole next to us. He is a counselor at Hartnell College, which is our community college. So he's able to offer dual enrollment classes for us on campus after school and earns the students 10 high school credits when they are finished with that course.
So let's go to Terry then. Is that okay? Tell us about...
I just want to expand quick a little bit, because we've been working a career on really doing this. Every one of the programs are self-contained. And so each one of the programs has 36 up to 49 students, where you have a core academic teacher with a paraprofessional, and we have at least one CTE credentialed teacher that we brought out of industry in each program, often 2 or 3. And then we have a case manager typically assigned each program. So you'll have a 1-to-7 student to adult ratio, which doesn't necessarily matter, other than small class size and individualized learning matters, which is important. But it's the quality of the teacher. But we're really trying to look at how you integrate all of those things so that when they leave us, they're leaving with their industry recognized certifications for each program and a high school diploma. But most importantly, they're being trained to go on and to work and be successful in life in the workplace.
Fantastic. So, Terry, how does the dual enrollment work? So you're at the community college?
Yes, both. Yes,
you're both. So what do you do? Tell us about your day. What do you do?
Yeah, it's a lot of different hats, right? So, I assist the after-school program as well for Rancho Cielo. But for the dual enrollment program specifically, we offer triple the amount of credits for high school students to obtain. So, for example, say a student takes a college course, they get 3 college credits, right? For a regular college student, they get 3 college credits, but also since they're a high school student, they'll get triple the amount, which adds up to about 9.8 credits for high school. Right, so it's a win-win situation for them. Great.
What is that course? Give us an example of what that course is, that dual enrollment
Yeah,
course.
so I teach Introduction to College. So it teaches the students how to navigate, how to utilize their resources on campus. Because as you know, even myself, when I entered college, I didn't know how to navigate certain resources. So, for example, printing so expensive, right? You have to print 10 pages for one assignment. Being able to navigate resources, they have certain programs that offer free printing, right? If you're a certain student with less resources, right? Also, I teach career explorations, which gives students opportunity to navigate which career they want to pursue and how they're going to pursue it. What's the student plan? So we teach those 2 different college courses on campus at Rancho Cielo.
Tell them where else you teach that course.
Oh, also as well as Monterey County Office of Education in the juvenile hall system as well. Yes.
So he's doing, and he's kind of underplaying the value. He's adjunct faculty at the community college. He meets minimum qualifications. But we're developing the whole middle college idea at our campus now. And so our culinary program is aligned to Monterey Peninsula Community College's culinary program. And our executive chef is adjunct faculty there teaching those dual enrollment classes. Terry's offering his college and career class in the after-school program that he runs, and so there's a lot to all of that.
So I wanted to step back for a minute. How many years has Rancho Cielo, this program, been in existence?
25.
25. So you have a lot of data, so to speak, or results that you can look back on. Like, what percentage of graduates end up in high-wage jobs?
So we have our impact report here. Love to leave you with one of those.
Okay.
But, you know, typically it's interesting because you look at these individuals. I'm going to use you as examples, and I'm looking at a lot of the students we work with early on. And one of the big things is many of them have created wealth. So they're both making over $100,000 a year with full benefits and a retirement account. They both own their homes. That's critical to the equation, and many of the others have gone on to do similar things. For those who haven't passed away or been incarcerated, the majority of the rest go on to do these things. Last year, Midel was responsible for 77 graduates and graduated all but one eligible 12th grader, which is really astounding. And then over 90% of our students are typically going on to transition into what you would describe as high-wage jobs.
Wow. And the majority of the students enrolled also enroll in the dual enrollment with the community colleges, or is that just a percentage, small percentage?
Absolutely. A lot of the students, as we mentioned, the pathway is going to college. So whether it's a trade school or regular community college, they start there in the transition going to the community college first.
Okay. So how would you respond to the debate that goes on in America now about, quote, the value of higher education and traditional college? Because some people would say, you gotta go to college. No matter whether it relates to a job or not, it gives you this, incredible experience and all that you read and you do and the people you meet. And then there are others who say, no, higher education should be more about getting the practical skills that are necessary to be able to qualify for a high-wage job. And of course, both are polars. I asked the question because there's always truth in the middle. But how would you react? How do you react to that debate? Is it that there needs to be something for everybody, and not everybody wants the same thing? Go ahead.
I think I think you laid it out. Everyone going to college is clearly not a pathway, and we've disproportionately, trained a lot of social scientists, and we've gotten away from building and career technical education, the things that really drive this country, innovation, things like that. I was just having this discussion with the graduate school where I went to, and they're considering to go out of business, unfortunately. And we talked about the capacity, and he said there's too many colleges for kids who want to go, and it's not meaningful anymore. And it reminds me of a conversation I had with a cousin married this German gentleman who's a developer. And he said, Chris, in Germany, we used to have everybody in the trades, and our trains ran on time, and the buildings lasted 200 years. And the clocks worked properly, and everything was beautiful. And the plumber would work and play football, soccer on Sunday, and have a barbecue, and made a good living, and everybody was happy. And we thought we needed to be like you and send everybody to college. And now we've trained a lot of social scientists. They're all taxi cab drivers. Nothing against the social scientist. I'm one of those. And I have a lot of college degrees, which is sort of a weird thing. But what I found, and with our students, is their minds work very quickly. And they're ready to go right now. They're ready to do what's applicable. They're ready to make money now, and they really want to get right to it. And so the more we can feed that, I think the better off everybody will be.
I'm going to shift the question because I want you guys to. So one of the critiques, 10 minutes, one of the critiques of traditional vocational education, the old model of vocational education, is that it tracked kids and too many kids of color. Mm-hmm. And that the academics were sometimes taught in ways that were less than standard. You talked, for example, Morel, a moment ago about the young people going into the trades learning, quote, fractions, when maybe other kids are learning geometry, trigonometry, and calculus. Is there a danger of watering down the academic part by focusing too much on career? And if so, how do we avoid that?
That's an interesting question because, I get asked this question a lot as far as, well, why are you working in alternative education? Well, I'm a product of alternative education. I remember struggling with math, reading, and I didn't have teachers that were teaching me what I needed to learn in order to be ready for college, right? Because that was what I was aspiring to do. But currently, when I came in to work at Rancho Cielo, I wanted to reform that. I wanted to make sure that we connected with what the students needed and made sure that we hired the accurate staff to be able to support that. The teachers are receiving trainings from different organizations that work with students with autism, that work with students that maybe do not learn differently, that have dyslexia, that need extra support. But we also train our teachers so that they're able to, teach the standards that a traditional school would teach as well. So we have different types of learners, and I think that's what's missing in our educational system, is that not everyone is meant to be in that mold that a traditional school would have for these students, right? They all learn differently. So we tap into their learning modalities. I know some students are visual learners, some students need, other supports, and so we're there to provide them those opportunities. And like a traditional school would emphasize their professional development for their teachers on whatever they have funding for, we look at what the need is. And so if a student needs extra support in math, then let's find the perfect person to support them with this and provide professional development for our teachers.
Daryl, two things on that, just real quick.
I want Terry to get in there too, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
Midel, it was the top bilingual educator in Monterey County, and we brought her over to teach English, right? So get your head around that a little bit. Second thing is, all of our students are the ones who have dropped out of school, they say, aren't as literate as everybody else. We have a driving program, and we fund up through driver's license and get cars to them. But we have a 94% passing rate on the driver's permit test. The state passing rate for English speakers is 64%. The question becomes, how did that happen? They wanted it, and so.
Just like Chris said, I'm a product of that as well. At the end of the day, you have to want it, and it takes people like us not to, water it down, but also challenge the students, right? I definitely I want to achieve, I wanted to prove myself right in doing things. We have a student who's been incarcerated 3 years, and they're at our program now, and he's working in the auto restoration, learn how to build cars, fix them up. Also, he's in college courses. He just took geometry class and got an A in the class, right?
An A in the class.
Right, exactly. I was horrible at math, so I'm like, man, he did that, so it's a blessing to see it, and the students honestly commit to it, and they want to work towards that success.
So we got just a few minutes. God, we could go on for hours here. What's that, Lynn? Questions for everybody? Let's open this up to questions. Yes. Go ahead.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Thank you all for a great conversation.
Do we have a mic? Yes, please, a mic, if we could, please. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cami Pierre. I'm with Next Gen Policy. I work on the legislative side of these things, so policies that expand career pathways, expand CTE, apprenticeship. So Chris, you referenced Germany earlier. They are a nation that is leading the way in this nationwide system for career pathways, trade school, apprenticeship, higher ed, and a student is able to weave through that system really well. So hearing about this program, I'm curious if you've considered registering for an apprenticeship pathway, and if not, what are the barriers to doing so?
I don't quite understand the question.
Is there do you have a, so in the trades, of course, and in Europe, they have formal apprenticeship pathways where students who are are close to graduating or graduating then move into an actual formal apprenticeship. Is that what you're asking about? That's the European model. Is that what is the I guess if I take your, what's the postgraduate continuation of the Rancho Cielo program? Is there any kind of formal post-graduation training?
Yeah, great question. Thank you for clarifying that. It's our goal that 100% will go to the military, apprenticeship program, college, or work, or a combination of them. Work is very important for us, but no doubt, whatever that may be, and we have students in all of them.
Thank you.
We have a lot to learn from the European model system-wide. I will say that. I think that's a really important point. Go ahead. Get the mics around.
Hi there, I'm Danny. I work with Learner Centered Collaborative. We're actually right now working with Salinas Union High School District. We helped craft their strategic plan, and a big part of that, the question is, how can we scale access to CTE? Right, they have Mission Trails ROP there. So in looking at what I think to be a very smaller closed system in Rancho Cielo, what advice would you have for broader systems that encounter logistics, transportation, schedule conundrums? What perspective or advice would you have in terms of scaling this a little bit more broadly?
That's a big question, and I've been working with our leadership on that. And the majority of our kids come from Salinas. It's our biggest feeder district. The first thing is, and what kind of I wondered about early on, was why all the expelled kids couldn't take vocational training or ROP, and they were the ones who needed it the most. And I would say that first and foremost is access. Then I would say comes the rest of it. It's also a fee-based, fee-for-service program, right? And so for us, it's free choice for every kid who wants to be there, and then it's free to every kid. We're investing $35,000, $40,000 per kid per year. It's the only program in the country like that. And then privately, in partnership with our agencies we work with, receive public funding, we've tried to give all that extra stuff that they need to be successful with mental health, with transportation, with food and nutrition, with housing, access to medical care, the things that allow someone to get engaged with a school program. So I think that might have something to do with it.
I want to answer your question as well. Until the system, and in this case the state of California and the University of California that defines academic rigor through their A to G framework, until we are committed to developing more CTE courses in the core academic subjects that meet those requirements, we're always going to have this separation and division. And so the Rancho Cielos of the world are going to be the exceptions rather than the rule. That's what needs to change from a policy perspective. Thank you, Jim Steyer. Go ahead. Next question.
I stole the mic. I'm Amber. I run strategy at Wayground. We used to be called Quizzes. Some folks may have used that before. I'm really curious. A lot of what you're talking about are skilled trades. And at a surface level, it seems like, AI wouldn't disrupt that. But when you think about technology that we use in all of our jobs, I don't think there's going to be any job that isn't in some way impacted by AI. So I'm curious, how are you preparing your students to have AI resilient outcomes? Because the entry level workers are those who are likely to be most impacted.
Mirel, you take that question.
Go ahead, Mirel.
I'm too old to answer that question.
It's very difficult to even manage students not using Gemini, ChatGPT, but we do focus on teachers explaining to them the importance of it and using it as a tool rather than using it as a guide in their life. And so one of the things is just exposure to and have that conversation with them, because a lot of times we're like, no, like you can't do it. We know that they're gonna use it eventually, or they're probably using it to answer some of their assignments, but using it as a tool and also providing them exposure to like our ag companies that use AI to run their machines in all of these different areas and sectors, so that they're able to see that, hey, like I can learn programming through 3D printing so that I'm able to then use AI to be able to support me in my education and in my career. So that's how we address that.
I'd like to think we're training in jobs that AI aren't going to replace.
Go ahead.
Also, we had a discussion about that. That's cool that you said that. A school program, like a lot of these jobs are going to be extinct, right? Because of AI. But a lot of that also, people can't get rid of hospitality, right? Being able to work with one another. So a lot of times we want to build those people skills with our students.
Go ahead, sir, and then
Sure.
Liz, and then a young man there. Go
Hi, Preston Walton. I'm with Alameda Health System Foundation. We have a workforce development program in healthcare that we work closely with the health system on. I'm curious, given the tenure of the work that you all have been doing, a lot of what I examine and talk with leaders about is in Oakland or Alameda County, for instance, how do we recruit from the county and then keep those young people in the county working and adding to the economy? And so I'm curious, in the 25-year history, I think you mentioned, what has been the track record, either anecdotally or any research you all have done on young people that graduate, pursue these new careers, and then stay in the community or adding to the economy in the communities?
A high percentage of our graduates all stay locally, and that's absolutely our goal, is to satisfy that.
I've been able to visit the campus and seen it, but and I encourage anyone who wants to know more to visit. Can you try to paint a picture of what it's like? So we've heard about the programs, but not about, it's a 100-acre property. Tell us about the enrichment programs, the transportation, the case management, and all of the things you provide so that students who are not successful in traditional schools are absolutely thriving.
Adele, Terry, you guys can answer that.
So we have mental health support for students. We know that that's a huge deal for all of the students that come to Rancho Cielo and to any school, is being able to deal with their traumas. I myself experienced trauma in my life. I was the product of, a single mother home. My brother was murdered in Salinas. So I've gone through a lot of trauma that if I did not have alternative education, I wouldn't be able to be where I'm at right now. And so all the enrichment opportunities that we offer, and Chris always speaks about this, when I was going to school, I had to travel to, let's say, I lived in the east side and I went all the way to the west side of Salinas, which was really far. And sometimes I had money for the bus, for the public transportation. Sometimes I didn't. And so one of the first things that Chris did when he became CEO of Rancho Cielo was eliminate the transportation barrier and all the barriers that students have for their success, right? So he started up an equity committee and he said, hey, let's bring up all the problems that we have that students are currently facing so that we're able to then work on them. And when we talk about getting it done, it gets done, right? It's not like, oh, we're gonna have a conversation and we'll touch base in a year or in 3 months. No, it gets done. We're working towards those steps to get it to the students and make their experience better. So we have, like he mentioned, enrichment opportunities. We have horses. They're on campus. We have our new FFA program that just initiated. And we're the first charter school in the nation to have an FFA program. And so we have all of these different opportunities, bikes for students to take breaks during the day. We have Harmony at Home Partnership, which is our therapist on campus. So if we ever have a crisis or students need to talk to a student, or to a counselor or a therapist, they're able to receive those supports. But again, when I talk about Rancho Cielo, people are like, why? That's actually happening in this country, and it is. It is something very unique that I wish that every student that doesn't have the opportunities, that has trauma, that has lived through really hard experiences can be part of. And that should be part of our entire educational system, not just unique to Rancho Cielo.
I'll just say that really it all adds up to creating a safe place, first and foremost, they can come to, getting them interested in coming to school, and then to have a sense of belonging. All people need that and want that. And then a purpose, is really what it all adds up to.
It's pretty basic. It's making the education relevant to what young people are passionate about and what they might want to do with their lives. That's what it is. We got 2 questions here. I know. Can we go 5 minutes over just a little bit? Because I want to ask a question about testing and certification as well. But at 5 to 12. So we got a couple minutes. Go ahead. These questions. Go ahead.
My name's Jonathan. I'm a student at Stanford. And I had a question for Terry. I'm from the west side of Long Beach, and you mentioned that you were incarcerated. I feel like I have a lot of friends who are, I guess, a part of that wrong crowd that you said you were part of, and you said you had a student as well who's now thriving in his class. I wanted to ask, exactly, maybe you can speak about like what high schools can do to help students realize that they're part of that wrong crowd and change their life.
Good question.
Yeah, great question. So a lot of that is guidance, right? And being relatable. Okay, when you have somebody, as you mentioned, you have somebody that has been through that path, seen those type of things, lived through it, and transitioned their life to become successful. I think that helps in believing in the guidance, right? I'm a parent, and sometimes I remember growing up, especially when I was just got drafted. A lot of people, hey man, talk to my son. I want him to do this. I want him to play football, right? And it's like they would tell me, and I was younger back then, but they'll tell me they don't listen to their dad. A lot of times sometimes you have to hear from somebody else, and getting that from somebody who, like I said, walked through those alleys and transitioned their lives for the better good. That helps a lot, right? So having relatable people that could pass that message.
Hi, I'm Claire. Thank you for being here. I'm the director of a non-classroom-based charter school in the Sacramento area. And what you were talking about is this A to G pathway, right? It's like it's the cream of the crop. When I started working at this charter school, it was kids would graduate either A to G or non-A to G. Like those were the 2 things, and it was a negative thing. And I'm proud to say that we have a few pathways now that we can implement through this virtual academy program that I've started at our school. But it's interesting because it was like photography, art, the ones that you could do virtually and remotely, and you could easily incorporate it and make he's right. I mean, that's what they were. We now have an ag pathway, which is super exciting because we can do that remotely, and then have the kids go out at home. But I'd be curious with y'all's experience doing this, because there's a lot of non-classroom based homeschool students in our state, right? Like we have this opportunity that they can use funding to purchase curriculum and all of those things, but then they're in all these different places. So kind of to piggyback on your question is, any ideas of ways to reach these students that are kind of all over that we don't physically as teachers see in a physical space? Like you guys, it seems like you have an awesome space, but any ideas of how to get more of these CTE pathways so that you can say, I'm not graduating non-A to G, I'm graduating with this as a CTE completer. And we celebrate that at graduation. We give CCI chords that is the same as being A to G or being a completer, which I really fought for. But anyway, I'm just open to any ideas that you guys have off the top of your head, because I want more, but like we don't have a kitchen, to do culinary, and we don't have an auto body mechanics place that everybody could come to do welding and body shop.
Can I expand your question, because we're getting to the end, but I want to make sure that subsumed within that question, why aren't there more internship opportunities out of home or out of class, real world internship opportunities for young people? Because the student who is at home, isolated, learning off the computer, doesn't have the kitchen, maybe, as you say, the culinary kitchen. If the school isn't going to provide it, there's not some central location, then isn't the alternative paid or unpaid internships for high school students where they can work with an employer who is exposing them to that? Why are internships so hard, even for pathway high schools?
You nailed it, and that is the answer to the question almost. And I was just going to say, and I want to hear from each of you on that topic, but I think field trips to expose them to a place, I think job shadowing, and then internships, paid or unpaid, which would lead to job placement. I mean, in short.
And I think also tapping into your community partners. So we have local community partners, Bill Hayward, that owns a lumber company. We have Don Chapin, who is he works with concrete. All of these people come in and support our students, do job training for them. They are able to interview them, do mock interviews that Terry oversees as well, and just get that exposure to these community partners.
We're about to get booted out here. Okay, 30-second lightning round. Testing and standardized tests. Are there other ways to evaluate the performance of a student other than standardized tests?
Yeah, I think standardized testing doesn't do a whole lot for anybody. That's why I use the example of the passing rate on the driver's training test, because that's the best example I can think of. But clearly allowing somebody to reflect their genius in an alternative way through demonstrating to you that they know what they're talking about or what they've learned is clearly an example of that. One young lady that built the trailer for the tiny home asked me, she goes, well, what's the assessment on this? I said, the assessment is that that trailer you built can haul that 10,000-pound house down the road at 55 and nobody gets hurt.
Last words, Morel and Terry. Go ahead. Wrap us up.
It comes back to relevance, like you mentioned. Relevance is key. So if we can use the classroom or the vocational classroom, like Chris mentioned, to be able to assess our students, like we have students that are OSHA certified. Like if, the traditional school system used these certifications as their, informal assessment or formal assessment, then we'd be in a different place right now.
Right. Terry?
Going back to like what you said about how can you reach people, I just think in the line of work that we do, being genuine, they always feel that, and it always goes and works out in its favor, right? So yeah.
I'm going to make the last. This is outstanding. It's outstanding, and it's the exception to the rule. They say the cliche culture eats strategy or whatever that is for. I don't know what that is, but whatever it is, we got to change the culture and the systems that allow more of Rancho Cielos to elevate here and become the norm rather than the exception. Thank you all very much.